This is a Hot Pie Original.
This is uncomfortable. It's no fun. There's not going to be any light moment at all. But it is and has been shockingly quiet. And maybe it's because it's such a horrific crime that took place just down the road. Maybe it's so over the top you just don't want to acknowledge it, but it's impossible and has been impossible. I think the mysterious silence about this shooting is pretty remarkable. And you can decide for yourself why you think that is. You can decide for yourself if you agree with me that it has been mysteriously quiet about this shooting. And here, let me set it up by saying this, and I think we all get it. I think we all know it's human nature. Unfortunately, we've been through it many, many times, and that is post-mass shooting, we want a reason. Right? The whole world, media world we live in is blame and reasons, absolutes, black and white. Give it to me. Tell me exactly why, because whatever you do not let there be any gray area whatsoever. So we always want a reason. We want to blame video games, guns, ideology. We do not tolerate it well if the red flags are not obvious. I think that's understandable, right? So you want red flags? You want beyond red flags? How about this? Spousal abuse, animal cruelty, child abuse, not accusations, guilty on all charges across the board. In fact, this monster, I believe, got out of a mental institution and/or military prison twice. So we're not talking about the standard, well, where were the red flags? Where were mom and dad? Where were the gun industry, the video game industry, blah, 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 blah. This is one of those times when they weren't just debatable red flags. They were absolutes. And the blame is mysteriously quiet, except Academy Sports and Outdoors that just had to defend themselves in court. Why, oh why, would it be mysteriously quiet that the blame isn't louder and more often? So the blame game on this shooting, again, I want to present it to you. Just notice in the state of Texas and the entire country, but particularly in the state of Texas where the shooting took place right down the road. Notice how quiet it's been. You don't like big business. You want them to pay. Surely somebody should pay for this shooting. So the monster bought the gun at Academy Sports and Outdoors. So Academy Sports and Outdoors has been defending themselves for a few years, saying it wasn't our fault. It wasn't our fault. Again, notice the blame, the legal blame, and notice where it's not going. The Air Force repeatedly released a monster. Saying monster is not even debatable. Academy wasn't at fault. Academy just had to defend themselves to the highest court to prove that they were not at fault. They've been saying all along, we had no idea he was a monster. But yet Academy's been defending themselves. So the Air Force released the monster. To be more accurate, they repeatedly released the monster. Academy wasn't at fault. The government was at fault. It's rarely pointed out he should not only have never been in an Academy Sports and Outdoors in San Antonio, he shouldn't have been seeing the light of day because he was a monster. Debating Academy Sports and Outdoors and the details of paperwork or computer systems and how they've had to defend themselves for years now in court. And finally, they've won and said, look, we told you it wasn't our fault. He should have never been outside of a jail. This one is one of those mass shooting examples where we can say, you know who was at fault? Not just the shooter, no doubt about it. He was a monster, an absolute full-on monster. Had been a monster for some time. To put it in perspective, he crushed the skull of a 2-year-old. He was a monster. This is one of the rare times that we can say, absolutely, we know who exactly was at fault. You let him out. multiple times. Crickets. It's crickets. And the term being used is the military may have mishandled this. You didn't say that with Academy Sports and Outdoors. The blame was Academy Sports and Outdoors has 4 separate lawsuits for selling this monster a gun. And all we say about the military, the U.S. government, is we mishandled it? What? What part of spousal abuse, animal cruelty, and crushing a child's skull is not enough to keep you in jail? So here's the story for those that don't want to remember, and none of us do. Nobody wants to go here. But the blame is the real part of the discussion. The legal blame is the real part of this discussion. You know, legal scholars have been arguing for a few years about exactly what responsibility a retailer has when that gun is used from that retailer to go and massacre people, because that's what the monster did. John McClellan is the co-founder and creator of ATX Hot Sauce, now in all 50 states and several retail outlets as well. So what we're going to do today is we're going to let this social media rock star chef walk us through 4 different sauces, and then I'll taste and we'll tell everyone why they should buy. You can give the science behind these, and then I'll make the simple recommendation. Go to atxhotsauce.com. All right,
I don't think anybody's heard the website.
Yeah, I know.
By you, Jeff,
I've never heard that.
It is atxhotsauce.com.
I'll say
I got that one right.
345 times, atxhotsauce.com. So let's do it.
I brought 4 flavors here, and we're going to test your palate today. Okay. And I only brought 4 because I didn't think you could handle 5 or 6.
Yes,
probably a smart move. Yeah. And so the first one we're going to try here, it's called Beet Heat. And just like the name implies, it has beets in it. It's made with red Fresno peppers. Red Fresnos are red peppers that are they're hotter than a jalapeno and a little bit less than a serrano. So not super hot here, just a lot of really good flavor. So we're going to start with this one, and then we're going to move up the chain.
Okay. I've had the Beet Heat, but okay.
Yeah, we're going to try it though.
It goes well with a cab. All right, Jeff's savoring Beet
I'll
Heat.
even do it with you, so that should be all right. Now remember, it is hot sauce.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's hot sauce. Trust me, man.
Wait,
is
that one hot to you?
No, a little.
Yeah. The great thing with the fermentation process is you get a bunch of the flavor right up front.
Yeah.
And then the heat comes, but then it dissipates pretty quickly, especially with the red Fresnos. You know, this is not a very spicy one, but it is a very tasty one. Goes on great on sandwiches.
Beet Heat.
Beet Heat. B-E-E-T. Heat.
All right. Go to atxhotsauce.com.
That's right.
Yahoo News. Texas court rules retailer can't be sued over mass shooting. Now, people have been debating for some time, not very often, because we mysteriously didn't point the finger at the government. Neither does anyone in politics want to point the finger at the government. Here we are reliving this whole thing all over again, and notice how quiet it is when somebody doesn't say, hey, why the hell did you let him out? What were you doing with this monster? Notice how that's not talked about, and Academy Sports and Outdoors is talked about all the time. Survivors and families of victims of a mass shooting at a Texas church can't sue the gun retailer that sold the weapon used in the attack. This, the state Supreme Court has just decided. Plaintiffs alleged in 4 separate lawsuits against Academy Sports and Outdoors that the San Antonio area store negligently sold the gun to Devin Kelly, who went on to kill 25 people at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs before killing himself. So the court stepped in, and this has been playing itself out for some time. It's been debated for some time. What should they have known? You know who knew everything? His employer knew everything. They knew everything. This is one of these crazy people that just was under the radar. He was the radar. He was the radar. I mean, if crushing a kid's skull is not reason enough, I don't know, the animal cruelty, I don't know, spousal abuse, I would think that's not just, how did we miss him? We didn't miss him. He was right there. The Supreme Court ruled that the retailer was protected from litigation under the Federal Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. I don't know how legitimate that is. Either way, the reality is Academy Sports and Outdoors, who's been defending themselves for some time, who, just like everyone else, wanted this story and this monster story to go away, has been saying all along, hey, we looked it up on the computer screen. We had no reason to deny the guy the chance to buy this AR-15 or whatever he shot them with. We didn't know. Another court said, not just that you did not know, but we just can't sue you anyway. They can't be sued. Oh, okay. Well, that solves the problem, does it? No one's asking the question, how did this guy, this isn't just falling through the cracks. This is just shuffling him off to the general public, and he's a monster. You just send him on his way, and he's a monster. So the Air Force failed to enter Kelly's conviction for domestic violence. I said conviction, not we think he's a nut, not he was accused of being a nut. He had been convicted multiple times. You know, the government put him in a mental hospital. You know what he did? He left. Oh, and we caught him again. And what did we do? The Academy didn't turn him loose. We did. Notice how quiet it is. It's reported the Air Force failed to enter Kelly's conviction for domestic violence against his wife and infant son into a government database, which should have prevented him from buying the AR-556 rifle. That disqualifying information was not in the system. This is Academy's defense, and I don't know that. Obviously, this is true. I mean, you can hate on them all you want. You can say it was a bad move all you want. They were clueless. My point is, why was that monster even walking in that parking lot that day? I don't care if he was buying a stick of gum. What was he doing walking amongst everyone else? That should be the question. Instead, Academy for years now has been pushing back on this for pretty good reason. The court noted in its ruling the federal litigation over the Air Force's handling of incident was still before the courts. You didn't know that, did you? How quiet is that? So the claim is, well, Academy was on the clock. Academy and 4 separate suits had to defend itself. The government may have been guilty of mishandling. We're going to call it mishandling. You know what it's not mishandling. It's beyond negligent. Think about for a second. And there's not examples quite as horrific as this, but there are plenty of examples of states and jail systems and prosecutors letting the crazy person back out amongst us. Usually what happens when the crazy person is let back out, there's hell to pay. Imagine anywhere, any state, any prosecutor that would have let this guy out only to commit these crimes. Imagine what would happen with them. Imagine the hell that would be paid. Imagine they would never be reelected again. They would be chum in the water for every politician and media member and taxpayer would still to this day be saying, how in the hell did you let him out? You're never going to be reelected. You're going to get fired. I mean, the place would be cleaned out. If this monster were let out of the jail system and a prosecutor let this person go, they would not be reelected again. Yet, we shoved him out to society. We shoved him out. And it is the story that's not talked about. It is the finger that is not pointed. In a society post-mass shooting where we love to point fingers, we pointed the finger at Academy, and the military put this monster back out to go into Academy. I don't know if you can blame the families for wanting to find blame somewhere. I don't know that you can blame that any one of us would have reacted the same way and said, how dare you let him buy that gun? Why is it that the focus is not turned on? Why did our system, our government system, allow this monster, okay? There is no greater definition of a monster than the resume of this guy. I'm pretty certain crushing the skull of a child is up there. Crushing the skull of a child. Imagine a prosecutor. Imagine if this happened in Travis County. Imagine if local prosecutors let the guy that crushed a kid's skull loose. Imagine what politicians in this state would be doing. They would be falling all over themselves to blame, for good reason, local prosecutors. How did the military not do the same thing? If not worse. And by the way, it wasn't just crushing his kid's skull. It was also convicted of animal cruelty. He was killing animals. Oh, and beating his wife. A better question now is, how much will the Air Force's responsibility, the blame, finger pointing, how much of that's going to happen now?